Hello, hello. All right, so we are live, I think, for the first time in I don't even know how long. It's been a while for sure, but I've got about an hour drive ahead of me, and I figured that I would come on and see what you guys are up to today. So I don't know if anybody can hear me, but we'll find out as people start trickling in. So I've heard a lot lately about direct to film, and I even did a little bit of research on my own. And I think it's kind of interesting, this new technology that's popping up, because people are seeing that it's got a really low cost per print, and I think that's really attractive for anybody that's coming from the world of white toner laser or thinking about getting into DTG. It seems like you can get one for really cheap, and maybe it solves all your problems. Let me come around these bikers real quick. So I just kind of want to pick y'all's brain and see what you think about this new direct-to-film technology, maybe what you've seen about it, and just kind of learn more about it myself. I've done a little bit of research, and I'll share that with you. So let me switch over to the live chat as it comes out. Bagware, good to see you. Russell, obviously, good to see you too, sir. So I'm just curious, everybody who is just kind of out there and watching all the other videos that are out and about, what do you think about direct to film? So in terms of what I've seen, and I'm probably gonna have to repeat this in the next like 10 or 15 minutes, but from what I've seen, direct to film is using a regular inkjet printer, and they're printing onto like coated PET film. So it's getting printed onto a roll, and those film rolls are pretty cheap. You can get them for not a whole lot of money, and I think that's really attractive to a lot of people. But from where I stand, DTG hit the market in 2010, something like that, and then somewhere around 2015, 2016, we started seeing a rise of white toner laser. And that was an answer to a lot of the frustrations people had with DTG, right? Where there's all this maintenance, the high ink costs, a lot of frustration. And I think it's interesting, and I'm going to get to it a little bit later, the mindset of people who wanted to be an early adopter with DTG, right? Like they jumped into DTG, they were super excited about it, and a lot of people got burned. I was one of the people who dove into DTG within the first couple of years of it being big. And we were still working with, repurposed machines. There was not a whole lot of R&D that went into it. And we got burned. So you see the white toner lasers that finally are starting to get widespread adoption because people were skeptical. And I think people were skeptical, rightly so, because you had a lot of the same people who were buying white toner lasers or were looking to buy white toner lasers were people who had jumped into DTG to solve that same on-demand printing problem, right? And it took a lot of voices for people to finally be convinced that white toner was decent. I was one of those people. I was super skeptical. Let me see what Danny says here. Maya, the biggest question is, who does it target? Even DTG says different levels. Right. It definitely doesn't target everyone. DTG, the entry level, I think, is going to be the toughest market to really apply to. I think the highest volume of DTG printers are sold to entry level people, right? But at the same time, anybody who's at an entry level buying a DTG is going to struggle against the low volume. And if you're not running several shirts a day, then the maintenance cycles are going to add up. You're going to have a lot of repairs that come along with that. And I think that's where people get hung. The people who are running 200, 300 shirts a day, they're not the ones who are suffering from a lot of the lack of use issues that come along with DTG. So anyways, what I was thinking is DTG came along and had the inkjet issues, right? So you printing, you have clogged print heads, you have maintenance, you have all of that goes along with inkjet. Then you have white toner laser that seeks to solve the maintenance side of things, right? It's got a pretty high cost per print if you're just printing a single image per sheet, but you can let it sit for 3, 4, 5 weeks at a time indefinitely, and it's just never going to go bad. And that's what really attracted me to the process. And then now you have direct-to-film printers that are starting to hit. They're saying, hey, if you liked white toner laser, you'll love the fact that direct-to-film is super cheap per print. And I feel like that's solving a problem in by going backwards almost. Because yes, you have a cheaper cost per print. Yes, it's relatively convenient, but I don't think a lot of the people who are getting into direct to film are really trying to get into the transfer printing business, right? Like, I didn't buy a white toner laser specifically to get into transfer printing. I'm not taking custom jobs for 10, 20 blank sheets of transfers or printed transfer sheets that people can go and transfer themselves. I'm in the business of selling completed shirts, and the use of transfers is just kind of a means to an end, right? So yes, I use transfers as an intermediary, but only because I need to. Whereas I think somebody getting a direct to film is missing the fact that, you know, you're not getting this to become a supercolor, right, or an FM Expressions, and that's really what the higher volume DTF printers are geared towards. If you get one of the ones that are coming out of China that I've seen two types. You've got the ones that are based on the L1800 print head, and that's like a desktop printer, and they're very slow, like 5-6 minutes per print, and you have to babysit them. You can't do a second print because they're wet, and if you push out, you know, one print on top of the next one, it's going to be a problem. So you have to go from print to crystals, and your hand shaking them. So you got like I don't know, anywhere from a 6 to 8 minute imprint, and that takes time. So an L1800, in my mind, is not something that you're going to be able to produce volume on. That's like the slowest of the slow Chinese DTGs, and the L1800 DTGs have been around for 2 or 3 years, and they're not toppling the DTG market. But the other one that looks interesting to me is the one that I'm seeing coming out of China that has a wide format, like a 17 or a 24-inch PET roll, and it has a crystal shaker, like an automatic crystal application shaker on it, and then that's combined with a conveyor dryer on the end of it. So it's this big, ugly machine, and it looks like a super hazardous health risk because the crystals are getting aerosolized into the air, and that is not healthy to breathe. Like, there's warnings that go along with plastisol transfer crystals, like you don't want to breathe this in, you want to be super careful, but like there's no regard given to people's safety. But I think those potentially have the biggest chance of becoming successful if, and this is kind of where I'm thinking, if an American company gets behind the technology and builds like an infrastructure of technicians that can fly around and land and actually service these machines when they go down, not if they go down, but when they go down, and is able to source a large amount of parts to make sure that they can keep these printers running. So those are two big variables. If somebody just goes online and buys one of these machines out of China, that's like, in my mind, it's about $6,000 down the drain, because it will go down eventually, and you're not going to be able to source parts very easily. You may or may not be able to work on it very easily. And I think that really relegates it to people who are willing to wrench on their own machine and willing to fiddle with something. So you can't be the kind of like high production business owner that just wants to jump in and let it run, right? And you just want to make sure that your dollar per hour is really rocking. You can't do that with one of these. Even if it can run a print for 30 cents on the dollar, and even if you can run hundreds of prints an hour, when that thing goes down, you could lose days, weeks of production, depending on how hard it is to get parts. So I just don't think we're there yet. I think in the next 18 months, if this technology has legs, and I kind of think that it does, but if this technology has legs, then somebody's going to invest enough money to build out that support network. They're going to source the parts. They may even reverse engineer it. Instead of using Chinese wide format printers and all these other things, maybe they'll just grab off-the-shelf parts they can readily source, like Brown's screen printing presses. All of those are just off-the-shelf Dayton motors and just various things like that. If there's no patent on it, why not? But I think people who spend the money, whether it's $3,000 for the L1800 based unit or it's $6,000 to $10,000 for the Chinese all-in-one unit, I think it's a high risk time to enter right now. You know, if you're looking at this type of format, you're saying, oh, direct to film is super cheap, and you think you're going to save money by jumping into it, I don't think that's necessarily a realistic goal, and I think that's kind of a dangerous avenue to approach. If you're tight on money and you're buying this to save money cost per imprint wise, that's not the right angle to come at this. If you're an early adopter, you're interested in the technology, and you want to take a risk on it, and you can stand to lose everything that you spend on it without ever having to rely on it as your primary source of transfer production or shirt production, sure. I mean, but that's a very, very narrow subset. How many people have an existing DTG or white toner setup that they're working from and can stand to just burn anywhere from $4,000 to $10,000 just to play around with the latest and greatest technology? In the world of computers, the people that spend $3,000 on a PC, it's like 0.5% of PC buyers. So I just don't think that, of the number of people that I see in Facebook groups and on Discord that are talking about it and super hyped up about it, I think it's people who are looking for a discount rather than people who are looking to cut their teeth on the bleeding edge. So that's just something that was on my mind, but I kind of want to see what you guys think about that. So let me read the comments real quick. All right, let me go back through here. Danny, good to see you, man. I know, I haven't had any kind of live stream going on in a long time. Cost per print, cost of scale, not of scaling. I'm not quite sure I follow you, Maya, but you know, I gotta keep one eye on the road, so. Owner, good to see you, man. It's been a long time, for sure. Yeah, I know, 8,500 subscribers, that's super cool to be at. And we're just kind of on autopilot right now with everything. Let me see here. Anyone put 2 layers of print down with Forever Dark? 1 layer is lasting after washes. So, Desire, if you were to do 2 layers of Forever Laser Dark, that's going to really cut your washability down, right? Because you've got the glue. The glue from the first layer of Forever Laser Dark is going to melt into the fibers. And when you press that with the Teflon sheet for 30 seconds, that glue melts down into the fibers, and then now you've got yourself a layer of toner and glue that's fused to the shirt. So you're going to get your 50, 60 washes out of that. If you were to put a second layer of glue and toner down on top of that, now you're bonding glue to the surface of toner, to the surface of glue, to the shirt, and you're going to end up washing out a lot sooner. It's going to be more fragile. It's going to be more prone to cracking. I wouldn't do that, even if it's super bright. The workaround that I would do, oh boy, the workaround that I would do in order to make it look better is add a little coverage. So if you're working on like an iColor printer and you want something to look brighter on like a black shirt, I would jump up the toner coverage from 210 to about 230, 240, and then I would drop the temperature on your printer, or not your printer, on your heat press from 310 down to 270, 275, and that's going to make a pretty big difference on the brightness of your prints, and you don't have to compromise the shirt for it. So let's see here. Let me go through all the chat. I appreciate that, Bagware. Robert, that's a good question. How is everybody's t-shirt doing these days? So I'll tell you this, Robert, in terms of like local business for our t-shirt printing, so this is just neighborhood print shop, the volume of production that we're doing has slowed down. March 14th or 15th, we virtually stopped, absolutely stopped local. It was really rough. The only thing that we had going into mid-April was jobs and production. So that was kind of a scary time. And then around May, things started to pick up in terms of local business. Fortunately for us, we don't work on just local. We have a lot of national stuff and a lot of like contract type work that keeps recurring. And that was really fortunate for us. But I think it's interesting because now local is coming back, but there's a lot more people that are in the business now, right? So we're kind of in a boom of new people jumping in. I've survived a couple of winters. You know, we had a winter back in 2009, 2010, and then we had another winter. We personally had a winter in like 2015, and then we survived that, and here we are in another boom, which I think is interesting. Washability, Leonardo. I'm curious about what you mean about washability. Are we talking about the direct to film? Because I think the washability of direct to film is going to be very similar to plastisol transfers. So to answer your question, that's probably going to be, I don't know, anywhere from 30 to 50 washes probably is what I would get out of a good direct to film, because those transfer crystals that they're using, they're good stuff. You know, you can get those on your own to make plastisol transfers. So I don't think that the washability is going to be a big issue. I think color gamut is going to look good because it's an inkjet, and inkjets typically have good color gamut. I don't know how bright the whites are going to be because the low-end ones that I've seen, they use thinned out white. That was the $3,000 direct-to-film machine that is really, it's an L1800. So you can buy an L1800, not in the US, you have to buy it on something like Alibaba, for instance. But you can get an L1800 for $700 or less. You can get an AcroRip dongle for 29 bucks. So now you're at 730. You can buy a continuous ink system because the L1800 is a bulk ink tank. So you're like just dumping ink in there. It's very easy to work with. It would probably be worth getting a white ink circulation system from something like UFO printers or something like that to circulate the white right up to the print head. But it's a very DIY system. But I think that somebody could reasonably get their foot in the door with a DIY direct-to-film printer for about $1,000. It's when I looked at it, I thought I could do that for under $1,000, and I could tinker with it. And I think it would be fun to do. But Waldo, to answer your question on what I think about direct-to-film versus white toner laser, I said it earlier in the live stream, but I'll say it again. And I'll try to summarize it. I think direct-to-film is very new. I think that there's a lot of hype and excitement around it because people are looking at the cost of entry. People who would not have otherwise been looking at getting into the industry are looking at direct-to-film because it's cheaper than white toner laser. Cheaper than DTG, right? So you have like a larger subset of people that are looking at getting in because, oh, I can get this for like $3,000. But the issue that I see, the biggest issue I see with direct-to-film isn't that it's unproven technology or anything like that. I think it's solid tech. The issue is lack of parts, lack of support. When you are looking at spending $2,000 or $3,000 on a machine, you're not going to be getting a fast machine. So you're probably looking at a 5 to 10 shirt per hour machine, and that's with you like locked in and focused. So if you're talking about your revenue per hour, oh boy, you're not going to be taking on any wholesale jobs for more than 20, 25 bucks an hour. For retail jobs at 20, 25 bucks a shirt, sure, you can do that. But you're going to be running into the same print head issues that you do with DTG. So what I said earlier was direct to garment, that broke into the market. A lot of people jumped in, a lot of people got burned. But the entry-level DTGs burned people the most because there was a lot of maintenance issues if you don't run them all the time. So people who jumped in with DTG who didn't have 20, 30 shirts a day, they were getting burned, right? And then white toner comes on the market, 2015, 2016, and it took a lot of us who got burned on DTG time to really want to dip our toes into white toner laser. And when we finally did, it was me back in January. I looked at it, I said, this technology has legs, it's gonna go. I can get 50 to 60 washes out of it. I'm happy with the color. And the biggest thing of all is I can let this thing sit if I don't have a job for it and I don't have to touch it. 10 months later, 6,000 transfers later on my white toner laser, I've had to press something called a maintenance image color registration like 3 times, where the white starts to creep out, the white roller gets a little misaligned, so I press a little re-registration. Doesn't cost me a thing. It just realigns the rollers and it's back in spec and I'm popping out transfers. I'll have to think about it. When I press print for the print queue for the day, I can get my 20, 25 transfers out in a couple minutes, and then I send it off and everybody does their A to B on it. So it's for me, I don't have to think about it. I don't have to fuss over my embroidery machine. I don't have to fuss over my automatic screen printing press. When I'm ready to go print a job, my press could have sat for a while. I just go in there, set my screens up, and go to town. And that's what I expected out of the laser, and I got it. Whereas DTG, I had to fuss, right, over my DTG. I had to maintain it. I had to work with it. I had to clean it off with Q-tips. And I think we've got white toner was an answer to DTG, and direct-to-film is an answer to white toner, but I don't think it's the right answer. Direct-to-film is going to threaten Supercolor and FM Expressions and those kind of guys. It's not necessarily going to threaten people who are in the white toner business because transfers are a means to an end, right? And if you've been here for 10, 15 minutes, you've already heard me say this. I use transfers to print t-shirts. I don't use transfers to sell pre-printed transfers. Whereas a direct-to-film printer, really that's going to be something that's built to make transfers to sell. So if that's your business model, that market's going to get saturated when 100 people come online with high production speed direct-to-film transfer machines, right? And I think that's really going to saturate the market, because eventually you just buy transfers from your corner transfer printer, but you still have the same maintenance issues because you're working on an inkjet system. But the low end ones are slow, and the high end ones are, I think right now, the $6,000 DTF machine that I saw, it has a wide format printer, and then it has a crystal shaker attached to it, and then it goes through a conveyor dryer to dry it off. I think in the next 18 months, something like that, a version 2 or 3, is going to be cool, but we have to get a support network built around it for people to come fly out and wrench on it when something goes wrong. We have to have a lot of stock of parts built up with very ready availability for people to be able to get and service. But yeah, right now I don't think it's not something that concerns me, and I was looking at it from the perspective of, could I bring this in and start dealing in that equipment? And so I took a very close look at what's out there right now, and I just don't think we're not at a point yet where it's ready to hit the market full swing. So let me read the comments here. Chinese supplier saying the ink on the 5K printer is not stable. I don't know what that is. I'm curious. Challenge is finding reliable tech support for the L1800. Yeah, see, the L1800 is not a U.S. Printer. It's like Epson's International EcoTank. So they don't have, I looked on their site for any kind of current printer that's like the L1800. They don't have a bulk ink system printer like that you can get. So I think parts are going to be a little tougher to source. And then, let me see here. Chinese supplier saying the ink is not stable. I'm curious about what they mean, because I feel like you could just use Firebird DTG inks or something and make it work. Leonardo, I'm glad to hear you like your white toner laser, man. That's awesome. And then Robert, is iColor still the best choice? I know what you're asking. Really, it's just iColor and Oki. And Oki has the ability to use iColor's Pro Rip to rip their prints, but I think the big difference is understanding what's inside each of them. So we're kind of changing gears here. The iColors, they use the fluorescent white, so you use less white toner, you get more durable print, and it's brighter without costing you nearly as much money. And then you have the ability to swap cartridges on the 550s and the 600s, and then the 800 has a wider color gamut. So in short, yes, there's a lot more to it. There's like 10 or 15 patents that separate the iColor from the Oki, but the iColor is better right now. That's what I would look at. Let's see here. Hustle Ninjas. I was thinking about it. Rich, good to see you, man. I was thinking about getting or DIYing, like Frankensteining my own L1800 direct-to-film printer just to see what the hype is all about. But I've got a secret project that I'm working on right now, which is the main reason why I haven't posted a lot of videos in the last several months. But we'll see. Whenever I get my secret project that I'll announce eventually out, then we'll see if I start a whole series about working with direct-to-film for fun. Compared to regular Plastisol, how's the hand and feel of white toner and Plastisol? So regular Plastisol obviously has that patchy feel if it's thick. The laser transfers with the standard, it feels not great. You can use like the Magic Touch paper, and you can use different types of finishing sheets to get a better feel out of them. But white toner laser is not something you're going to win competitions for with how it feels on a shirt. Now you can get it to the point where it feels acceptable or good whenever you've got the art with a lot of negative space. So if you have a shirt and you've got negative space on it, you're not going to have that crinkly, crackly paper feel like you would if you just had a big, solid patch. But yeah, with iColor Standard or Forever Laser Dark, those kind of middle-of-the-run papers, yeah, the feel is average. Now, I'll say that after over 1,000 sales, and this is another video I want to put out soon, and 25,000 or so dollars in sales since April on Etsy, we've got a 5-star rating selling $25 shirts, and I think we've only got 4 or 5 people that even mentioned the feel of it, and their concern was, if it's an iron-on, is it going to last? And when we came back with, yes, it's a professional transfer, this isn't an inkjet transfer that we just ran on our $200 printer, it's going to last you 50 to 60 washes, they left their 5-star review, or they took their 4 to a 5 or whatever. So it's not something where people were frustrated enough that they're asking for refunds or anything. It was the exact opposite, which that helped me build confidence in the platform a lot, because I'm kind of a snob, right? Coming from the world of plastisol and screen printing with an automatic screen printing press, we have the ultimate in washability. It's 100 washes or more. It pretty much, if you run a plastisol shirt and you do it right, the print is going to die with the shirt. So you have the ultimate in durability. In terms of look, you have access to discharge inks, water-based inks, plastisol inks, so you can get the look and the feel dialed in exactly where you want. There is no better way to print than with screen printing at volume. So coming to laser, when I felt it, I said, I don't know if I like this. Is this going to cause a lot of problems? What it comes down to is most people who are getting t-shirts printed, they don't know enough about the industry to be snobby about the feel of a shirt, right? Like you and I, we know what's possible and why things feel a certain way and why they look a certain way because we're insiders. On the other side of things, most people just aren't on that level. So once they started buying these things and they were happy with the product they were getting at $25 a piece, that sealed the deal for me. I said, look, I'm not gonna get hung up on feel anymore, because it doesn't matter to 99. Well, let me see. Out of 1,000 and some odd sales, 5 people even mentioned it. So apparently, it doesn't matter to 99.5% of buyers. That's good enough for me. And that's just my opinion on that. Let me see what else we got here. Mistake I made is you wish you had the big white toner machine. Yeah, I think it's good to get your foot in the door with whatever you can get and start producing, Leonardo. Like if you have the budget for a 550 and you can do that without putting yourself in a weird spot, or even one of the Okies, the lower end Okies, if you can get a lower end machine, get in there and start producing, and you're making $60-$70 every hour that you're actually using your machine, right? So you're not gonna just jump into the industry and start making $80 an hour per hour, 40 hours a week. Just nobody does that. But you get in there, you start making money, and then out of the profit of your first machine that you got comfortably, you didn't put yourself in weird straits to get it, then you go back and you buy your upgraded machine. So I don't think it's ever a mistake to start conservatively, if that makes sense. And I think my first 4 videos on how to start your screen printing business were, hey, broker your jobs out. If you want to get into the business and you have zero money to get started, just get the sale. Go, sell shirts to someone. Learn what the prices are that you should be charging. Learn what people want. Get people art. Make the sale, and then go find a broker. Find somebody who will print these shirts up for you at a discount. Take that margin, the profit margin, and then using that profit margin, go and get another sale. And then when you get 3, 4, 5 screen printing sales, at that point, that's when you've got enough money to go buy your own equipment. And you can get yourself an entry-level screen printing press out of the profit of your brokered sales. And then from there, you upgrade and you get a heat press, and then you get a flash dryer, and then a conveyor dryer. And you can grow a business out of purely the profit of your sales. And you do it a little slower, obviously. But I think most of the people jumping into the business now, and I don't know how many people have seen any of my other videos, but people getting into the business now think they have to jump in at like a $50,000 or $100,000 level. Like I have to have the ability to never buy equipment again in the next 5 years, and I want to be able to take this business to 200,000 with this one equipment purchase. And I think that's kind of dangerous, right? Because you don't know if you're going to be able to make a successful business. B, you're fighting your lack of experience in a lot of cases. You don't have sales experience if you're coming from a 9-to-5 job that's not a sales background. You don't have an art degree or graphics design experience, so you've got to learn how to become a graphics designer or how to assemble graphics. You have to learn how to work on your books and report your sales tax. I mean, there's a lot that goes with running a business, and you're going to be learning all of these things. So better to learn all of these things without $10,000 or $20,000 on the line and having to make an $800. I'll tell you, the one guarantee you've got is that your lease payment will come due every month, whenever the date is, right? But if you can sit there and start with low risk, you've got a good shot at making sure you never go to zero, right? You can't fail in a business that has nothing on the line. And if you're working on a cash basis, then even if you take a 2-3 month break, your business isn't shut down, it's dormant. So I think that was a good choice on your part to start cheaper, Leonardo. I think I went on a tangent there. And then whenever the time comes for you to upgrade, do it, and maybe you'll want to jump into screen printing or embroidery or something else instead of expanding your transfer capabilities. That's a possibility too. You know, my wife in her business, she's expanding using our existing transfer capabilities. She went from shirts, and now she's looking at keychains and ornaments and mugs and all these other things that she can do with it. And it doesn't require anything more than an 8.5 by 11 sheet. I mean, we have access to 13 by 19, but anything you can do with a hard surface transfer paper, you can do that with a 550 or a 600 or one of these lower end machines. So I think that's ways to look inside the box are kind of important. You know, see what else you can do with what you've already got. So let me see here. I'm going to go back up here. Oh, Sway, good to see you, man. Let's see here. Field print is a big deal for me. I know that's 89% of people I don't care. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think I'm reading back a little bit, but I don't think most people care nearly as much as we do. Sphinx, good to see you, brother. I think that's because you're on the opposite schedule of most people. Let me see what you got here. I have a full-fledged sign shop. I want to push more also into auto soon. You know, I think if you have a shop that can sustain an auto purchase, that's really a good place to be, because the types of jobs that you can take on with an automatic screen printing press, it's night and day, right? I think the biggest glass ceiling that screen printers face is jumping from manual to auto, because you can get 6, 7, 8 color automatic or a manual screen printing press, and you can take on a certain level of job. And I personally took on huge jobs with my manual press. We took on a 6,000 shirt job. We've taken on a lot, just big jobs. And it was just me and a couple guys that were pushing squeegees and loading shirts. But the issue with the manual press is you can only run so many 12, 13, 14 hour shifts before you just get shot out. Your shoulders are jacked out, your arms are jacked up, you're tired, your back hurts. And the biggest problem that I had was I would go in and I would run a big manual job, right? 2,000, 3,000 shirts, a couple imprint locations. And while I was in there running the manual jobs, I wasn't making sales. So people might call or email and I don't get to them within that window of time and I lose the sales. So I would get a surge of sales. I would run them on the manual press. And in that week and a half that I wasn't able to answer calls, I'm not loading the pipe for 2 weeks from now. So I finish this big sale, and then I have a dip where there's no business because I haven't filled the pipe, and then I refill it again, then I get busy, and then I get, so it was up and down and up and down and down, and that happened a lot. I kept bouncing off the most that I could do and the most number of employees that I could support running a manual, whereas an automatic doesn't quite have that problem. You're talking about running on my baby automatic. I can run anywhere from 200 to 350 an hour, full color, 3, 4, 5 colors on that automatic press. You run a 12-hour shift, you got a couple thousand shirts. So a job that could have taken 2 weeks before takes a couple days. And even if you're running a small crew, you're not losing out on the future sales because your pipe can stay fuller because you're not in there running and overseeing production. So I think that's a huge move to make, especially with a shop that wants to jump in that direction or whatever. So anyways, I don't want to pander to likes, but I see 23 people in here. If you guys don't mind, I'd love to see a couple thumbs ups if you guys like the live streams. I'd love to do it more often for you. But let me see, what other questions you guys have? What do you got here? And who's in here? Is there anybody that's been in, or that's in here that I haven't acknowledged yet? Let me say hey to everybody. So I've got 2.2 miles before I gotta take a right here. Into the slow lane. So let me see here. We've got 20 people, and I know that the turnover is about 15 minutes. We've got the direct to film, and I talked about it right at the beginning of the live stream, but I'll summarize what I said before. I think that people who are the type of person mostly who's looking at getting a direct to film is trying to get into the industry at a discount, and I think that probably immediately precludes you from wanting to jump into this, because you'll jump into this not looking at the lack of reliability, the lack of service, and the lack of availability of parts, right? So if you get into direct to film right now, you have two options. One is $7,000, and you're getting it from China with no parts availability and no service, no one to walk you through how to wrench on these machines. If you get an L1800, you're looking at, you know, $2,000-$3,000 if you buy it from the people who are stateside. But the speed of an L1800 is very slow. L1800 DTGs have existed for 3 years, and nobody's talking about them because they're very slow. So you print one transfer out, and you have to babysit it, because you can't print a second transfer out of an L1800 because it's wet, right? You have to be there to catch it, and then you have to apply the crystals. So you're at 4 to 8 minutes per transfer on an L1800. That's not good. You know, 10 shirts an hour with you being eyes on babysitting a process is very slow. And I think you're going to run into a lot of the same reliability issues, maybe at a lower cost point, but a lot of the same reliability issues of DTG, right? So high maintenance, potential downtimes, all of those things. You can't just walk away from a printer like this. So I don't think that it's a budget option. If you're looking at it and say, oh man, my cost per imprint could be 50 cents or less, and then you look at White Toner and you say, well, it's $2 to $4. If you step back and you say, well, why would someone like Brands and Empires like me, why am I comfortable paying anywhere from $2 to $4 per image? Well, that's because I've been down the road of DTG with all of the maintenance and everything, and I want it to just work. I want to be able to go in the morning and not have to think twice about it. I press print on my 25 shirts for the work order and just get them done. And then I move on with other stuff, because I can't go in there and say, oh, now I've got 45 minutes of printing to do and maintenance and all these different things I've got to work on this machine before I can get up and going for the day. I don't have time to do that kind of stuff. I want to go in there and just run it. And that's what I can do. I expect that out of embroidery. I expect that out of my automatic screen printing press. And now I expect that out of White Toner. You know, there's that zero maintenance, zero downtime, zero headache reliability. And I think that's what's going to be lacking from direct to film for the low volume printers that are looking at it. A high volume shop that's looking to take on Supacolor or FM or 613 or any of these other transfer printers, yeah, you know, if you're looking at these and you know what you're getting into and you're buying 2 or 3 of them, great. But I think that market's going to be saturated with like 20 or 30 printers, and the ones who are really interested in starting a true transfer printing business in earnest already knew about this several years ago. So, you know, you see White Toner was an answer to the gripes with DTG, and it's not perfect. You know, White Toner has its own frustrations and sticking points, but White Toner answered the maintenance issues and reliability of DTG, and it did it well enough that I've jumped in and I'm happy with it. And now you have direct to film that says, hey, if you loved White Toner, you'll love the price point or the cost per imprint of direct to film, but it's really DTG in a new, you know, with extra steps. You know, you got a DTG print head, but now you're printing to film instead of a t-shirt because it's new and it's fancy, but it's not. And I think that's what we have to be mindful of, is the people who jumped into DTG 10 years ago got burned early on, and you don't want to repeat that mistake as a new buyer, jumping into a new format and getting burned because you can't get your printer serviced and you can't be up and running when you need to be. I mean, imagine if you were down for 3 weeks because your print head got clogged and you can't get a replacement print head. Did you really save any money? Probably not. You know, probably not. So let me see what we've got here. With direct to film, you might as well just get Supacolor transfers. Yeah, I think the issue people have is they don't want to spend Supacolor transfer money, right? That's the whole allure of DTF, is the fact that you can save money on transfers. But it's not just that bottom line number. You know, there's always more to it than that. I think, and I covered that. So let's see here. Been doing DTG, and I can't wait to have the space to finally jump into screen printing. That's huge. That is absolutely huge. You know, one of the guys we've got, I'm gonna check and see what I lost here. One of the guys that we know, Robert from, he's Norby in our Discord channel. He had a DTG that he got. It was like a Brother 786 or something like that, and it was like a high-end, older DTG, and he loved it. And he loved it enough that he went out and got like 2 or 3 more Brother GTXs to run. But he's running 200, 300, 400 pieces a day, and he's only running on light shirts. He's not running on black shirts, so he's not using the white channels. But he loves DTG because his cost per imprint's low. He doesn't have to fiddle with extra steps, and it's going to be running 7 days a week because he's got the volume to run it there. And now that he's got redundancy, 4 machines, he's already told us that, yeah, the machines do go down. The machines do have sticking points and issues, but it's not enough to scare him off the process, because he could replace a print head at $1,000 or $2,000 and still save money over the other options that he has. And selling custom, 400 custom shirts a day, that's its own set of challenges. But let me see here. You can get good durability and vibrancy from white toner printers, but you have to design correctly and use the right papers. Yep, that's 100% true. I think negative space is important. And with white toner printing, you have to think about how you can make something work for you. So with ours, we don't take a whole lot of customer commissions, but if we did, then you would end up having to spend time either preparing the artwork for it or using like the lines or whole rasterization. So it's about communicating with customers and setting expectations from the beginning. You have to let a customer know, hey, this is what I can offer. I can solve your problem of wanting an on-demand print, but this is how I can do it. And just having the confidence to say, this is what I can do. They're there, they want to do business with you, but with whatever you have, you could have a DTG, you can have screen printing. If you have screen printing, then you're aware of this. If somebody comes in and they want five shirts with 4 colors each, most of the time you're just going to say no. The most I ever printed was a 5-location shirt, and with just a total of 6 shirts. It was a fishing shirt, for a team of fishers that had a large contract with me. And I told them, I said, look, I know you're used to a $12 shirt for their normal guys, 2-color front, 2-color back, but you're talking about 6 fishing shirts, and you want these things printed on both sleeves, the front, the back, the bottom, the bottom of the shirt. I said, that's a lot. And we want a lot of colors here, so I charged over $100 a piece for 6 shirts, and it took me an entire day. 6 shirts over $100 a piece. It was an $800 day, but man, it was a difficult job. If you can't charge what the job requires you to charge, you have to turn it down, or you have to eat the time and think that your time is less valuable than what you want it to be. And that's a whole different conversation. When you're first starting your business, it's okay to take junk jobs to stay busy. But the toughest part about scaling your business, whenever you finally do get into the thick of things, is knowing when to start saying no to the customers that got you to the $50,000 to $100,000 mark. And that's tough. That's really tough, because you typically, some of your most loyal customers are customers that aren't good customers. When I was getting to $50,000, I had guys that were super loyal. They would come in, but they wanted 12 shirts at a time, different design every time, and they really only wanted to pay $10 a shirt. They didn't want to pay much. They wanted a very low quantity. They wanted high customizability. Well, the reason they were so loyal is because nobody else in town would touch that with a 10-foot pole. So it was very difficult for me to finally say, hey, look, I'm busy and I can't take this job on now, because now I have a 100-shirt job that's paying twice as much. I'm making more on less work, and I'm 2-3 weeks out, and eventually having to shut that side of the business. It's tough. It's tough enough that a lot of people never get past it, and you end up capping yourself out or not being able to hire your first employee because you're so busy taking on minimum wage work. So I think that's kind of the trap of, do you want to build a book of on-demand, low-quantity, high-complexity business where people bring you a custom shirt that's going to take you an hour to prepare the art, or do you want to run a book of simple, easy-to-run shirt art? So that's my take on that. Let me jump in here. One of the biggest costs in DTG is the white ink. How about direct-to-film? Uh-oh. It says I'm still live, but I don't know if that's true. So I am, also we are in Tampa Bay area. So we're in the Tampa Bay area. I'm actually in Hillsborough right now, driving over to see a friend of mine. I'm building my next YouTube computer workstation. So this is totally not related to the live stream, but if you're into computers and you've been watching the world of technology, then you'll know that NVIDIA just released the Ampere series, the 3000 series of printers, or not printers, you can tell where my mind's at. They launched the 3000 series of video cards, which is super cool. And AMD is launching the Zen 3 architecture. So it's the next 7 nanometer architecture for desktop processors. So my most recent computer is an Intel with a 6700K and a 980 desktop. But the new computer I'm building has an NVIDIA 3080, and it's going to have a Zen 3 5900X. So I'm pretty excited about that. But it's hard to get your hands on anything. If you think it's hard to get your hands on an iColor printer right now, try getting your hands on a 3080 without paying double retail, because they had a paper launch, which means they launched it and they started selling it, but they didn't have any stock at all to feed into the market. And because of reasons, demand is extremely high right now for a new build, because the new parts are just super fast compared to even last generation. All right, so let me see here. I missed my turn, which is not great, but I can pull a U-turn. So I am now getting into town. I want to see if anybody has any more questions to ask. I know it's super bright. Yeah, it's super bright, a lot of glare. But if anybody has any last minute questions, I'd love to just chat with you before I let y'all go for the day. So let me know what you guys got. Any questions about, I don't know, it doesn't matter. It can be anything, embroidery, it can be white toner laser printing, whatever you guys are interested in. DJ Upseen, nice, you're in Hernando. All right, you're not too far at all. We're actually in Polk is where we live, but I'm just heading over to Hillsboro to have some fun building this out. All right, so what is my opinion about Okies? So let me see here. Sphinx, you're killing me, man. You're 600. It's on the way, I'm sure. Let me see here. What is my opinion of Oki printers? All right, so if you've got one, the printer you have is amazing. Okay, so I will be splitting hairs if you've already got one. But if you are looking to get a new printer, the Okies don't have as wide of a color gamut. All right, so that means if you were printing a rainbow and you're trying to see all of the colors that you could print on an Oki versus an iColor, the iColor 800 is going to have the widest color gamut of any printer on the market. The iColor 600 has a near identical color gamut to the Oki 8421 or something like that, because they're all based on that's based on the same engine. But the iColor 550, the 600 and the 800 have the ability to print fluorescent white. So that's a big one right there. Is the Okies use more white and it ends up becoming duller. It's not bright, it doesn't pop. Whereas the iColors use less total white. They use about half the amount of white toner, but you end up producing a more vibrant print that just grabs the light a lot better. So that's a big thing. Whenever you're looking at a print on a black shirt, for instance, the Oki is going to look warmer and duller than the equivalent iColor. And then there's a lot of other things like hot swapping cartridges on the 550s and the 600s that you can't do on Okies. I don't know, I don't have the list in front of me because I'm driving, but there's like 10 or 15 different changes that they made with iColors that are patented. You just can't get that on an Oki. So for that reason, that's why I looked at it and I said, okay, Oki is more of what was out and available 4 or 5 years ago. iColor is kind of on the bleeding edge, and that's I think what is obfuscated by dealers. You know, Oki dealers will say, oh, it's great, yeah, this is the way to go. It's not really, because it's old tech. But it doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means that it is not the latest and greatest, right? So it's like buying a 3-year-old Toyota versus buying a 2020, 2021. All right, so I need to turn around here. And I'm on Nebraska right now, which is not necessarily the best part of town. And I gotta check out where I went wrong, because my GPS is micro. I'm looking at my face much larger than I'm looking at my GPS. But let me see here. If you guys have any more questions, I'll answer about 3 or 4 more, and then I'll find out exactly where I landed in Tampa, because I'm a little lost. Okies are worth half that of iColor. Okay, so Jose, that's actually a good point. If you're in a country where you have service and availability of parts, and you can get an Oki for half the price of an iColor, the decision just made itself. So it's not one of those things where, oh, the only thing you should get is this because it's the best. Well, you know, you have a sliding scale of value, right? If you have the ability to get something serviced, and you have parts, and you have a dealer network, and you have access to it for half the price of the competitor, it doesn't matter if the iColor is 20% better. That's an irrelevant point. You know, you want to get what's out there and available to you, and an Oki is going to have the same low maintenance compared to DTG that you're looking for. So I think that's kind of interesting. And you're welcome, Josue. I'm glad to hear that from you. All right, so we're at 50 minutes. I would love to hang out with you guys indefinitely, but I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you so much for hanging out, and I will be, let me see here, announcements. I was looking at putting out like an official DTF versus DTG versus White Toner video, so that's still on the horizon. The other thing is Etsy. So we went from $0 to $25,000 since April. So we decided to start an Etsy, and now we're making $6,000-$7,000 a month, and it's all run on the White Toner laser printer. So that's kind of cool. That was a lot of it was my wife's doing. I just provided the infrastructure for her to shine. But yeah, for us to start a hobby income that's now on track to do over $100,000 in the next 12 months, maybe more, because it's growing month over month. That's kind of cool, and I'll share some tips and tricks about how we got there. But I know Rich Kuhn has probably the most sage advice, because he's light years ahead of me. But you know, all right, I'll say this: the number of designs does not matter at all. It doesn't. I hear people talk about the number of designs. If you just hit 300, 400, 500 designs on Etsy, you'll do great. Well, you know what? If I put 500 designs up and they're all just junk, maybe you'll do better than somebody with no designs. But each design has to be good, right? So it's like somebody who has 500 YouTube videos. That doesn't really do much for me. 500 YouTube videos isn't going to get you 100,000 subscribers guaranteed. Each video has to be made to be perfect, or made to be excellent. Same thing with your designs. I would say probably, well, not probably. We got to $2,500 a month off a dozen designs, something like that. So that's something where if you really put time, effort, and energy and experience into it, it doesn't take many designs to hit a good livable number. And then I think now we're closer to 100 designs. Yeah, so quality before quantity, but don't get hung up. Don't spend 12 hours per design, because you're going to have some turds in there. You may fall in love with a design and it sells 0. And you may have a design that you're not super in love with and it just goes gangbusters. So don't get hung up on any one design, but get them out there and make sure you're putting out excellence, and you'll do well. And I think probably by the time, with 100 designs, with 100 designs, we can do 100,000. So that's what I'm seeing. The question here, Greg, one of the biggest costs in DTG is the white ink. How about direct to film? Same thing. Yeah. I mean, direct to film is DTG, but you've got the added cost of film. Now, I think that here's my opinion. Direct to film versus DTG. When you screw up a DTG print, you feel it in the form of burning a hoodie or a t-shirt or a polo, and that's expensive, right? You know, you burn a polo, you just added $8 or $10 to your mess up cost. With direct to film, you're adding the guaranteed cost of a film, but you know that you've screwed something up before you spend a ton of money trying to recover a shirt or whatever. So I think that 30 cents for the film that you're printing on is more than worth the savings. But in terms of ink cost, you're using the same DTG inks. If you're not using third-party inks, though, then I gotta get out of the way here. My flash is on. We got a ambulance. But yeah, if you are using third-party inks, and I highly recommend that. I don't quote me on this, but the amount of money that you spend on first-party inks to stay in your warranty is not worth the trade-off of just buying a replacement printhead if something goes wrong and wrenching on the machine yourself. So I think that was the biggest change for me in my business when we switched from spending just obscene amounts of money. We spent obscene amounts of money on ink and cleaning cycles every 4 hours on our DTG. And when I switched over to third-party inks, I was getting gallons of inks for the price of a pint. It was just nuts. And I also extended our cleaning cycles out to like 6 or 8 hours instead of every 4 hours, and that was another big savings between on my video I was talking about the costs and everything. That's because you're getting sold these machines as if you're only ever going to use first-party inks. I wasn't giving a hacks video, but if you have a DTG, use third-party inks for sure. All right, so on that happy note, everybody, it was great hanging out with you, and I will see you in the next one.